Hello. Before we talk about anything, I feel like I need to give you the heads up that I am sliding very quickly into vacation mode. By the time you listen to this and the episode is aired, I'll be back from vacation. But today, right now, the day that I'm recording, I am sliding hard and fast into vacation mode. So just wanted to give you that heads up that is the place I am recording this today, is in the almost vacation mode space, which the topic for today around giving yourself permission feels like the perfect summer pre-vacation topic, even though it really applies every single day of our lives, no matter the season or what you are doing, giving yourself permission. Before we dive into that, I want to do a quick PSA, friendly public service announcement about speaking engagements. So if you are looking to hire a speaker, if you're looking to hire me or thinking about it, or just curious about speaking or hiring me as a speaker this fall, now is the time to reach out. I'll put some links in the show notes so you can schedule a consultation with me and learn more about what I do. But just a quick little synopsis here. I speak on 3 main different topics. They're all under this umbrella of what are the rules that we're handed that take us away from our authentic selves, from our well-being, that constrict us, that contain us, and how do we break those rules to rediscover your voice, take up more space, and unleash your authentic leadership and life. So if you are interested in any of that, the rediscovering your voice, taking up space, being more authentic in the workplace and in your life as a whole, bringing your full authentic self to life and breaking those rules so that you can have more joy, freedom, and create more impact with your work, this is what I do. This is what I speak on. So there are 3 main topics I speak on. Discover your authentic voice and how to use it to lead change, where we talk about the very real barriers, because they definitely exist, that get in the way of you sharing your authentic voice. What is bigger and more important than that? Like, where do you want to be using your voice? How do you do that in a way that is both effective and authentic? Not just like the way the rules have taught you you're supposed to present yourself, but what is actually authentic and effective for you? And then how do you create a space where others can also show up and share their full authentic voices as well, because we all have a role to play in that. So that's one of my topics. Creating your own rules for success is another one that looks broadly at all the rules handed to you in your life and work as a whole and says, wait a second, which ones of those do you actually want to keep on following? And what's your definition of success separate from those rules? What makes sense for you at this point in your career and in your life? And what are some new rules that you want to follow that are authentic to you, what you desire, who you are, and the impact that you want to create? And then the final one is pretty self-explanatory. It's called imposter syndrome and what to do about it. So I don't think I need to explain that one. All of these sessions are super interactive. I'm both virtual speaker, so I do a lot of 60 or 90-minute webinars, and I do a lot of in-person events and conferences as well. So both are great. I work a ton with employee resource groups inside companies, women's conferences and leadership events for like different professional associations or inside of a company. And I also do some team events. Creating your own rules for success specifically is a really great team event. It's a really great team event. So any of those, reach out. I'll put the link to my website, which is heatherwhelpley.com/speaking in the show notes. So you can get all the details about that and see my speaker reel. And then also I'll put a link right in the show notes if you want to just schedule a consultation with me as well. If you have an event coming up and you want to learn more about what, if it's a good fit to work together for that event. So you can schedule that directly in the show notes as well. All right. So that's it for the PSA for fall speaking engagements. You can also reach out for next spring and things like that as well, but fall is just coming up much sooner. So back to our topic for today. This topic on giving yourself permission was inspired because I was reading through Grounded Wildness, my book that's coming out this fall. I was reading through Grounded Wildness for quotes to put in a journal. Because not only is the book going to come out, but probably a little time after the book, I'm still figuring out the logistics of the journal. After the book, there's going to be some kind of journal that I'm super excited about. I knew immediately I wanted to have a journal to go along with Grounded Wildness. And so there'll be a Grounded Wildness journal with some quotes from the book. So I was scanning the book for the highest punch hitting, most inspirational, most thoughtful quotes from the book to put into the journal. And this one section popped up that was way too long to just have as like a 1 or 2 sentence quote in the book or in the journal, but it really struck me. And I wanted to do something more about it because I thought this is important. This section feels like something we need to dive into and something that would really resonate with you. So here's that quote. I'm going to read it directly. Permission is like the key to a locked door. Without the key, you can push and shove into that door as much as you want, and it won't open. Giving yourself permission is stopping the fight against the door, taking a breath, and slipping in the key. You still have to decide to open the door and walk through, but the fight is over. In this metaphor, the fight is with the door. In life, the fight for permission is with yourself. The fight doesn't originate from inside you. The rules you were taught are responsible for that, but it does have to end inside you. If you're waiting for someone else to come along and tell you it's okay to trust yourself and follow your knowing, you will likely be waiting a long time. You might get lucky and have a friend, mentor, or partner who encourages you, but even then, you need to make the decision. Only you have the power to give yourself permission. I realized when I read those words from Grounded Wildness, like how much of the goodness in our lives, how much of the freedom in our lives starts with giving yourself permission. It gets permission to say no, permission to follow your desires, permission to eat the thing you want to eat, permission to change jobs or to do the unexpected thing, to start a business or to do the thing that no one thinks you're going to do, like say no to the job that's offered you and go take a different career route, permission to sleep, permission to talk to your partner and say, I need a night off. I need you to take the kids and go somewhere because I need a night off. Permission to follow your inner knowing, to trust yourself and to do what you desire. Really, anything you want to do starts with giving yourself permission. And we can't wait. You can't wait for someone else to come along and say, oh, you have the permission to do what you want to do. Unless if you want that, I'm going to give it to you right now. I don't know that I need to be the person to give you permission, but if for some reason you are waiting, let this be your signal right now. You have permission. You have permission to follow your knowing. You have permission to do the thing that you want to do. But really, me saying you have this permission slip really doesn't mean anything if you don't believe it yourself. So you have to give yourself permission to live the life you want to lead. That's really what it comes down to. And as I was thinking about this whole concept around giving yourself permission and like, where is this? Like, where is any time you need to give yourself permission? Where does that show up? I thought, they all have one thing in common. All of those examples that I just rattled off a second ago, they all have one thing in common. Anytime you are breaking the rules is a place you need to give yourself permission. And if you're new to this podcast or new to the work that we do here in the Grounded Wildness community, the rules are those messages that you get every day from the time you were born until right now that turn into beliefs over time about what it means to be a good girl, a good woman, a good mom, a good employee, a good leader, a good friend, a good daughter, a good contributing member of society, all these good things. It's like handing you the definition of who you're supposed to be or how you're supposed to show up in the world, what you are and are not allowed to do, like what success looks like. Are you allowed to fail? Are you not allowed to fail? All of these things, essentially the expectations of how you're supposed to show up, the norms, the rules, all those shoulds and supposed tos. That's what I mean when I talk about the rules. All those shoulds and supposed tos. And the rules aren't 100% bad. but a lot of them are really harmful. A lot of those rules that they're telling you how to show up are really constricting you away from who you are. So rules like I can't disappoint anyone. I always have to be responsible for everyone and take care of everyone and make them happy. I should keep everyone else comfortable, even at the detriment of keeping myself uncomfortable all the time. I can never ask for help. I have to keep things under control or appear that I'm totally under control all the time. I'm not allowed to make mistakes. I mean, the list, let me take a breath because I realize I'm speaking really fast because those rules, they are a weight, and I have felt them. I felt them throughout my entire life, and they are a detriment. A lot of them, because they cause you to contain yourself, constrict yourself, take you away from your voice and your well-being. And that doesn't mean you're out there being fake, but it does mean following all of these rules is causing you to perform your life in some way, shape, or form instead of just living it, like living in the fullness of who you are. The rules take you away from your truth and your knowing and lead you down a path of performance. And it might only be like 10 or 20% performance. It's not 100% performance all the time for the most part, but there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum. And I think for a long time, I was at the like 30 or 40% performance. And the 60 or 70% of me that was showing up was truly authentic. I never felt fake. But I knew that there was this extra part of me, this extra 30 or 40% that I wasn't showing, that there was more of me to put out into the world. And now that's at like 10%. Sometimes I feel that 10% more than I feel the 30 or 40% that I used to be, because I'm more aware of it now. I'm working on breaking down those rules to let go of that last 10%. And often these rules tend to fall into 4 categories: proving, pleasing, perfecting, and then rebelling against them as well. And I'm not going to dive into all of these in detail right now at all, because in August, I'm very excited that I'm going to do a 4-part podcast series. So every single Wednesday in August, starting on the 8th, so not the 1st, but the 8th, and then the other 3 Wednesdays after that, I'm going to dive into each of these topics around how might you be performing your life through proving, pleasing, perfecting, and rebelling. So we're going to get into all of that in that podcast series. So if you want to make sure to see all of that, to listen to those podcasts, hit the subscribe button on either YouTube or iTunes or wherever you're listening, so you can make sure to get all that, because it's going to be good. Like, this was eye-opening stuff for me to be like, oh, wait, am I performing my life? Yeah, it's a question. It's a question for sure to be asking yourself. In all of these places, anytime that a rule shows up in your life is a place that you need to give yourself permission to break it. That's what they all have in common. And so I want to ask you that question right now. Where do you need to give yourself permission? What came to you immediately when I said those words? Where do you need to give yourself permission? I'm sitting here in silence for that kind of an extended pause, because I want you to really think about it for yourself. I can't tell you what that should be or what that is for you, but I have a feeling something bubbled up when I said that, a place you needed to give yourself permission. And I'm going to share 2 places that I've, one in the past, really worked on this place I needed to give myself permission for years. And then what I'm working on right now, because this is a journey that I don't know that it ever ends. Maybe we all reach some heightened extreme level of personal development and nirvana, but I don't know. I think maybe this will be a continual journey, a very compassionate, self-compassionate one, not a forced one, not one you have to do fast or be hard on yourself about. But it is a continual journey of looking at Where do you need to break the rules, and where do you need to give yourself permission to do that so you can be more free, so you can stop living your life and stop performing your life and start living it. So the first place that I, for years, needed to give myself permission was to slow down and do less and say no more often. All three of those went together for me. Slow down, do less, say no more often. Because if you've read my first book, An Overachiever's Guide to Breaking the Rules, like, you know that I was just a consummate overdoer, overachiever all the time. All the time. I overdid everything in my life. And yes, I think most logically it came out in overachieving. Like, that's kind of what we think of, like, oh, the overachiever, the good student, that's how you show up in life, the perfectionist. But for me, it went way, way, way beyond that. I just overdid everything, like even fun. I had no problem, doing too much fun and committing to way too many things and volunteering and leadership and everything. And I had to stop and really give myself permission to say, no, I got to slow down. I got to choose a different rule. Like, I'm worthy for who I am, not what I do, so that I can do less. And to know that my impact is greater when I slow down and do less. And therefore, I also give myself permission to say no to the things that aren't at the top of the list, the things that aren't the most important, or even the things that do sound really fun, but are just going to be too much for me in that moment, because I can't be involved in everything. I cannot do it all, and you cannot do it all either. So I really had to work at that, because all the rules, for sure, the ones I was handed in our very American culture, and I know I have people all over the world listening to this, but there's a lot of cultures around the world that are consistently handing out messages to do more, go faster, be involved in everything, achieve more, do it all. So I had to stop and give myself permission to break those rules and to do less. And yeah, it was uncomfortable at the beginning, for sure. All three of those things, doing less, slowing down, and saying no. Saying no was, in the moment, it was uncomfortable to say no. Slowing down and doing less was more like while it was happening, because that's when you slow down, it's an ongoing thing. And it can be uncomfortable to slow down when you're used to just moving fast and going all the time at work and in the rest of your life. So it was uncomfortable at first, but it got to be, over time, for the most part, I'm going to say like 95% of the time, it's not uncomfortable anymore. Sure, it definitely still pops up every once in a while. Like, if business is a little slow, I'm like, ooh, should I be doing more? And should I be pushing myself more to hit the pavement harder and hustle a little bit more? I hate the word hustle, but you know what I mean? So sure, sometimes those questions or that pressure pops up, but for the most part, the permission slip is already there. It's like I have an ongoing, collective, permanent permission slip now to slow down, do less, and say no more often. But for years, that was the biggest place I needed to give myself ongoing permission. Slow down, do less, and say no more often. And I share that because it was a journey, and it's also a journey that I'm like 95% on the other side of. And I want to share both that example of like, oh, I went through this and I know it is possible, because I hear from so many of you listening to this that it's really hard to slow down, that you feel guilty for slowing down or doing what you really desire, for doing less, for saying no. And that can be at work or to your parents or to your kids or to your friends or at church or in volunteering or anything, that like that guilt comes up, where it's just really uncomfortable to do less and slow down. So I want to let you know it is possible. It's possible. And it starts with giving yourself permission to even consider the possibility, and then the permission to actually say no, and the permission to do less. And this one in particular, if you want to dive in more to like all these rules and the doing less and slowing down and saying no and letting go of overachieving, my first book is definitely a good place for that, to dive into that. So I'll put that link in the show notes as well. But then there's the one that I'm like in the messy middle of right now. I wanted to give you that example too, of both this is an ongoing journey, and like it's not a perfect journey. Like I'm for sure in the messy middle of this one, which is giving myself permission to be big. And when I say big, I don't necessarily mean famous or, having a multi-million-dollar business or something like that. Although I don't know if those things happen, I'm not going to say no, but that's not what I'm striving for. When I say big, I mean like big energy, big desires, using my strengths in big ways, sharing my voice in big ways, in more direct ways, putting myself out there, like really being in my fullness, my full energy, the bigness of who I am. A couple of friends and I last night were talking about books and recommending some books to another friend. And then two of us jumped in with the Book of Longings by Sue Monk Kidd. It's an amazing book, absolutely fantastic book. And the main character in there is the fictional wife of Jesus. It's her story. And I don't think it matters whether you're religious or not. It's just a really, really wonderful read. And in there, this character, she talks about blessing the largeness inside herself, that like, this is her wish. This is her longing to bless the largeness inside of me. And that's essentially what I'm working to do right now, to give myself permission to bless the largeness inside of me. And you might be surprised that this is a challenge. I mean, I've hinted at it. I've talked about it a little bit here and there, kind of this fear of being arrogant. I've talked about that, I know. So maybe it doesn't surprise you, but maybe it does. Because like I get on stages, sometimes with 1,000 or more people. I published one book already. I'm publishing another book. I get on and record these podcasts. Like I'm doing pretty big things. So it's not so much the permission to do those things, although I do wonder where I might have barriers that I'm not even aware of because of this thing that I'm working on, this permission to be big. But it's more how it feels when I do those things. And then I worry, am I making someone uncomfortable by my bigness or by sharing my opinion so directly, or even just by sharing my truth? Am I being somehow disloyal, or am I making someone uncomfortable by reading that truth, or being in that bigness, in my fullness? Am I pushing too hard, even though I also do want to push hard? Like I want to challenge, I want to be using my voice, I want to be asking questions of both individuals and systems and structures. Like I want us all to be questioning. And I wonder and worry when I do those things. Like I wonder, not even wonder, because I know the answer is no, but like I worry, I have some stress around like, oh, should I just hold back just a little? It's that 10% I was talking about earlier. Should I contain myself just that 10% to make others more comfortable? And frankly, to a degree, to make myself a little more comfortable as well. Although there's also a huge discomfort with containing myself and holding that back. So this is what I'm working on right now, actively, both the giving myself permission to be big and how it feels when I do that, like giving myself permission to be big without the worry and the stress and the guilt and all of those things that go along with it, that have literally they've been there a really long time. I would say they've come to the forefront as a business owner just because I'm sharing my voice a lot more directly, a lot more publicly. But even in my corporate career, this came up all of the time. Excuse me. Like I would share something in a meeting and then I would be worried, share something really directly in a meeting, more directly than I typically would. And then I'd be like, ooh, did I hurt someone's feelings? Did I share that too directly? Was my energy too much? Was I too big? Was I too much in that? And I would get really stressed after the fact, always came up after the fact. When I did get feedback that I was too direct, which is a whole different topic, but I never got feedback that I was hurting anyone's feelings or being mean, or, I mean, none of that. And yet that worry was there. And it was this worry, like I needed to give myself permission to just be big. So it's been there for a really, really, really long time. And a few weeks ago, I finally sat down and dug into this. I was like, where is this coming from? And more importantly, like, why has this been plaguing me for so long when I've been able to let go of so many? I've been able to give myself permission for so many other things that I've truly, like 95% of the time, let go. And this, I feel like I've only let go like 20% of the time. Like, what is going on here? And I realized that I hadn't created a new belief. So I'd been like logically going through all of this and wanting to let go, but I hadn't given myself permission to lean into something new. So I started brainstorming, like, what do I really believe? What's a thing that I feel to truly be true about giving myself permission to be big and the outcomes of that? And I was brainstorming things. And then I wrote down this one sentence. I was like, this is it. It was using my strengths in big ways creates big impact. Using my strengths in big ways creates big impact. And I wrote down, I looked at those words and I was like, yes, that is the truth. That is what I need to lean into as I'm giving myself permission to be big, to put my voice out there, to take up space and energy, just the space that I have been given, and really fill myself in the world. That this is what I need to remember, that using my strengths in big ways creates big impact. And I want to create big impact. I don't want to contain my impact because I'm containing myself. I want to be big and to create big impact, let go of the containing and create an impact by using myself, my strengths, my energy, my voice in big ways. So I'm not fully on the other side of that permission giving right now, and not fully in that new belief. But man, it was helpful to identify and to say, yes, this is exactly what I need to give myself permission for, to be big and to use my strengths in big ways so that I can create big impact. And I've found with giving yourself permission that the more specific you can make it, the easier and better and more tangible it's going to be. And these can be big beliefs like what I've been talking about here, like giving yourself permission to slow down, do less, say no, or giving yourself permission to be big. And it can also be very specific, concrete things. Like last year, I was thinking about going to Mexico on this kayaking outdoor hiking trip. And look, the trip dates worked out for me, but looking at the dates, it was like a 10 or 11 day trip. There was a Monday through Friday, a whole work week, where I was going to be kayaking around an island and then swimming and snorkeling with sea lions. Yes, it was very cool. But there was going to be this whole week where I wasn't going to have access to any kind of email, any kind of internet. And while that felt amazing to me on a human level of like, oh my God, yes, camping on beaches, no internet, no screens for 5 whole days. Amazing. Like, yes, this is my kind of vacation. I want this. There was that should there that was like, okay, Heather, but you're a solopreneur business owner. Like, what if someone needs an answer? What do you do? How do you deal with that? Like, are you willing to give yourself permission to take these 5 days? And the answer, I actually talked through it with a friend of mine who's a coach. The answer was, yeah. I needed to give myself that very specific permission to take those 5 days. I could quickly check my email before and after, but I needed to give myself permission to take those 5 days. And I did put a backup plan in place. My marketing specialist that I work with, who's like not a virtual assistant, she doesn't do typical kind of assistant-y things. She's very much a marketing specialist. But for that week, she checked an email of mine, like an extra email of mine that I have that I pointed people to in my out of office. So I had a backup plan and it was all fine. I didn't just like be irresponsible about it, but I had to give myself permission to even consider it. And it was amazing. And the specificity of that can be helpful. So I'm going to ask you the question again. What do you need to give yourself permission for? Where do you have an unfulfilled desire? Where is the place that you have been holding back? Where's the place that you have been waiting? Where's the place that you have been performing just a little or holding yourself back, containing yourself from doing the thing you truly desire? And that can be a positive, wonderful thing like going and taking a class or taking a vacation. That can be something like saying no and setting boundaries. That can be making a career move. Doesn't matter. Where do you have an unfulfilled desire, or where are you being pulled towards that you need to give yourself permission to explore or to say yes to, or to move in that direction? Where do you need to give yourself permission? And if worry and stress come up, even thinking about this possibility of giving yourself permission or going and doing that thing that you want to do, that unfulfilled desire, that place you are being called, if worry and stress pop up there, then you definitely want to tune into these 4 episodes in August, especially the first 3 on proving, pleasing, and perfecting. And then that last one on rebelling is just going to be, it's going to be fun and interesting and might make you think about things in a different way. But that worry and that stress often comes up around the proving, pleasing, and perfecting rules. So definitely tune into those and learn more about that. And start giving yourself permission. Start giving yourself permission, because this is part of grounded wildness. Part of everything I'm talking about today is giving yourself permission to break the rules that have broken you, so that you can rediscover the inevitable freedom that is going to follow that. That is what grounded wildness is: breaking the rules that have broken you and the inevitable freedom that follows. It's coming back into yourself, that freedom, that fullness, that who you are, that authenticity of who you are, separate from all of those rules that you have been handed. So where do you need to start? By giving yourself permission. Just let that question ponder. Let that question ponder in your heart and your mind. And if something immediate came up when I asked you that question 10 or 15 minutes ago, whenever it was that I first posed it, listen to that intuitive hit, because it means something. It means something, and you probably already know the place that you need to give yourself permission. So listen to it and start exploring. Start using that key to unlock the door instead of fighting tooth and nail with the door. Put in the key and give yourself permission and start walking through. So grounded wildness, it's getting closer and it's really exciting. And the book is almost at the printer. And once it's at the printer, then I will have an exact date for you when it's going to be out. It'll for sure be this fall, hopefully earlier fall rather than later fall. But if you are resonating with anything that we are talking about today, you can pre-order the book now, and then you'll be the first to get it. And this does only go for people in the US, but you'll get signed hardcover copies immediately. As soon as that publication date hits, you'll be the very first to get Grounded Wildness. So we'll put that link in the show notes, but it's my website, heatherwhelpley.com/grounded wildness. And if you're outside the US or just prefer audiobooks or ebooks, those will also be available, as well as the paper book on Amazon on demand a little bit later in the fall. So I have to record the audiobook and we have to finalize all the things first before I can go do that. But it's going to be happening soon, and recording it's fun. And I get to be the one to narrate it. So it's my voice that you'll be listening to. And yeah, the whole thing's super, super fun. So there'll be lots of options for how to get Grounded Wildness, but know that you can pre-order it right now. And I'll put that link in the show notes, and then you can be the first one to get grounded and wild and to be officially part of the Grounded Wildness community. Although I think unofficially, everyone here listening is already a part of that Grounded Wildness community. So start now. Summer is a great time. Give yourself permission to do, say, be whatever you need to give yourself permission for. Listen to that voice. Unlock the key to the door, push it open, and walk through. Bye.